Hello, everyone. This is the Paint the Town Red podcast. My name is Chance Bowen, and today we have some news for you. It is Tuesday. Didn't get to do the episode yesterday. I had some things to attend to with my own business that I have, and so I had to do some stuff like that. So apologize for that. I'm going to try to get you guys episodes at least every day, hopefully from here on out. New Epstein files released by House Oversight. The House Oversight Committee has released additional documents tied to the Jeffrey Epstein case, including a controversial birthday book compiled for his 50th birthday. The book contains a note purportedly from Bill Clinton raising Epstein, along with an alleged Trump signature that the White House denies as inauthentic. The release also includes Epstein's will, personal address book, and non-prosecution agreement documents. The move intensifies bipartisan pressure for full transparency and accountability. I see the people talking about this case, and obviously on the right now, the biggest story, the biggest thing on everybody's mind is that the Democrats are utilizing the Epstein story in order to politically slam dunk on Trump and the Republicans. And then the Republicans are saying that, well, I mean, that's what the Republicans are saying. And the Democrats are saying, no, we want to, get rampant corruption and pretty much show who is actually controlling our nation and that Trump is for sure on the list and we need to prosecute him for that. And to me, both of these things are it's frustrating to me because what we should be focused on is the ties between Epstein and the Israeli government. But we don't make that connection in politics or in any of the big media companies. All of the news stories are all about one of those two things: how Trump is bad and implicated in the files, or how the Democrats are trying to slam dunk on them. The biggest thing about this story to me is, like I said, how they're connected to the Mossad government. And Epstein is clearly connected to Israel. His first client, Les Wexner, was a billionaire with dual citizenship with Israel. A lot of his clients that they just recently named have major connections to Israeli. There's one that's called the Haifa Israeli Fund, which is pretty much like a medical group that supplies medical aid to Israelis and other people within Israel. And this is something that has been a major player that connects all of these different people that are implicated in the Epstein files. So the fact of is it clear that they are tied in with Israel? It's clear. And yet neither Republicans nor Democrats are talking about that. And that worries me. Why is that? Why is none of the news stories, why are they trying to change the story and utilize what's going on, the selling out of the American people, the selling out of America, the blackmailing of all of our politicians, and Israel trying to control us? Why won't the Republicans or the Democrats admit that? Why? Why are they so obsessed with talking about anything else besides who is majorly implicated? Why? Is it because the Israeli government funds the Republican Party and the Democrat Party? I think it is. Is it because a lot of the people that are in the Epstein client list, including Epstein himself, are of Jewish descent? And they obviously they would love for Israel to do better because they are Jewish. It would be like if an Ethiopian person were here in America and they could benefit Ethiopia. They would 100% do it to benefit their fellow Ethiopians from which they come from. You don't just come to America and then you drop your race and heritage completely and you just completely forget about your home continent or your home country. That doesn't happen. You have something inside you that wants to fight for your tribe, and denying that is just stupid, to be quite frank. And this kind of gets into a broader conversation about race. Race is said as non-scientific, and loser people talk about race as being white or black or brown. That's loser talk. But the Democrats and the Democrat politicians are able to ad nauseum use race as a justification for many different policies, for many different welfare benefits that everybody gets and other factors of our society. But the white people, we're not allowed to weaponize race. We're not allowed to gather based on race. We're not allowed to do anything based on race, but they're allowed to weaponize it and use it however they want. And a lot of the younger generation people are waking up to this, but the older generation is kind of getting dunked on by all the Democrats, and they don't really do anything or even care enough to do it because, they've been taught that it's virtuous to let another group of people come in here and pretty much take over our entire nation. And we see policies that reflect this, like Trump's policy for the H-1B visas. We're going hard in about immigration and other things like this, but yet he's bringing in a bunch of H-1B visas, which are supposed to be on a lottery system, by the way, and yet 72% of the H-1B visas that have been accepted are of Indian descent for so-called tech jobs and areas that the American people cannot fill. The jobs needed are not able to be filled by Americans, so they fill them with Indian people or people from other areas. And what I would argue is that's saddening to me. I would want to empower the current Americans that are here today that could do those jobs. Maybe they just need a little bit of extra assistance. And that's what I would like to spend our money and effort in. Out of all the visas that are given out each year, which is supposed to be only 85,000 per year capped, 65,000 for lower or for minimal jobs, and then 25,000 for higher end master's degree like jobs. Only less than 1% of those are of Hispanic descent. Like I said, 72% of them are of Indian descent, and then there's pretty much the remainder is like of in Asians, Chinese people, and other Asians like that. The rules are broken with H-1B visas, like within Trump's first 4 years, he got in 1,920 visas approved, renewed, and new ones that came in. 1.9 million. Well, how much did Biden do? Only 1.2 million. Isn't that interesting? Trump whooped Biden's butt when it comes to bringing in Indians into our own country. Isn't that great? Let's see here. They also, like I said, it's supposed to be capped at 85,000. They don't follow the cap. They end up going every single time. This kind of goes into our next news segment, which is the U.S. Supreme Court has cleared the way for Trump's administration to do immigration raids to resume in Southern California, lifting a lower court's injunction that barred ICE from conducting roving patrols based on race, language, or ethnicity. The 6-3 decision sparked protests from liberal justices and civil rights groups to argue it amounts to legalizing racial profiling. Well, it may legalize it, but racial profiling is already going on. When you vote, they want to know what races are voting for what. When it comes to granting you, benefits, whether you're a Native American, you have Native American blood, or rather you're African American when it comes to getting into college. So to say that when it comes to getting illegals out of our country, we cannot use race to profile people. But when it comes to all these other benefits and welfare standards and voting and drawing lines for who votes for what, well, then race is legal, and it's actually brought into account into all these different areas. But we've been fooled by them because they're able to do that, but we're not able to bring up race. And the ones that are fooled are not the younger generation like me and most of the people here that are listening, but actually the older generation that falls into it. And that's sad because, again, we're not able to protect ourselves, but they're able to pretty much do what they want. It would be akin to going to a fight, but your opponent has a hammer and all you have is boxing gloves, right? That's not very fair, but they continue to do it. And the Republicans continue to double down saying that that's okay. Let them do it. We're not going to do that. And we will continue to lose all of these different battles. America will continue to go down the path of becoming less white. Now, these groups also look after each other. It's not all just hatred. I don't hate any other group, but I want to look after my own group. And I'm not able to do that. Whereas all these other groups are able to look after themselves, which I admire. And I would want our group to do the same. Now, that being said, with these deportations that are happening, like I said, they're on a rampage to deport these illegals that are Hispanic in California, in Southern California, who work hard and do a lot of jobs. And they have, to me, a very close culture to what we have. But when it comes to a completely different group of people, the Indians, who are not Christian, Hispanics are Catholic, they're Christian. These people are not Christian. There's been many instances where their level of rape and doing things that are against the American people and culture is rampant. But yet, Trump himself is bringing more of them over than all of history. And no Republicans bat an eye. Because again, they're stuck in these tunnels of Republican good, Democrat bad. But they're just idiots. They're morons, is what they are. Let's see here. So we can move on to the next news story. Nepal explodes in unrest following Prime Minister's resignation. Chaos erupted across Nepal as protesters torched the parliament and other government buildings, shutting down airports and causing widespread violence after Prime Minister KP Sharma Oil announced his resignation. At least 19 people have died and around 100 were injured in the unrest. So I read on this story, and I've been looking up some different things. It seems to me that every time the West, well, let me back up. It seems to me that when there are countries in between the West and the East, that the United States of America wants to win over the government of these said countries, like in the fact of Ukraine and other ones, they seem to always all of a sudden wake up and love democracy and freedom and want to riot and kill people in order to install a new government that happens to be pro-American. And it's happened so many times that I'm starting to believe the conspiracy theories. I'm starting to look at different instances in history and go, wait a minute, are we the good guys? Because if the truth is the truth, why does it forcefully have to be instilled, right? If there is a country and the majority of that country wants to be a certain way, why is it the United States of America's obligation to go in and forcefully change that society? Why? And now let's look at some of the tools on how they do this. A new tool that's been introduced recently, which was not around beforehand at the scale that it is now, and that is the social media companies. Now, we know that the CIA, InQtel, and others are heavily involved in Facebook or Meta, or known as Meta. The only one that's not, as of now, that seems to be is X, right? And X is owned by Elon Musk, and so he could very well be implicated as well as the oligarchs that pretty much run America. Now, these people in Nepal, the riots, what they're about is you look at all the media sites in the media in the West, and they'll say Gen Z is rioting over corruption within their own government of Nepal. So Nepal's president or prime minister had favoritism and leaned in a Chinese direction. Now, if you don't know about Nepal, Nepal is where Mount Everest is. It's where the Tibetan monks come from. There's a lot of mountainous, rangy people there, and they sided with China. But just recently, they actually tried to cut down on the amount of manipulation of the youth through social media companies that have started convincing the youth to be favorable of the West. And so the government's response was to pretty much do what China did and censor all of these different social media platforms, YouTube, X, Facebook, and I think like 27 others that were backed by US and controlled by the US. This sparked major outrage within the Gen Z community, the younger groups that want to use the social media companies, and they rioted and they killed 19 people. They even took a daughter of a prominent politician and burned her alive. So this is a radical group. Now, I would say, if you look it up too, you look into the research, you say, well, is the CIA or the Mossad, are they connected to this anyway? Because it just so happens that we're at the beginnings of a big war between China and America, or China and India, or the West. And then you have instances like Ukraine, where this has already happened. The war between America and Russia wages on through the fighting in Ukraine. And we know that the government, our government, used the Mossad and the CIA to overthrow the Ukrainian government in order to instill a pro-Western leader that is Zelensky. And same thing's on in Nepal now. And Nepal we're going to keep an eye on this story, but probably put in a pro-Western politician after all of this is said and done. The current prime minister obviously has resigned. Now you say, well, that's a conspiracy because there's no official sites that are reporting that the CIA has any type of involvement in Nepal. Well, that's the whole thing. They're covert. They're a covert operation. You're never going to know. They do this behind the sheets, per se. They're not going to do it out in the open, and they do that on purpose. If China and everybody knew, and the Gen Z that are rioting knew, they'd probably be less likely to riot against their own nation if they knew the West was behind inciting these riots. But you bring up, or people might bring up, well, that is a conspiracy. This is all conspiracy then. Everything you're saying right now is a conspiracy. The reason why I suggest it is because it's not a conspiracy, that it's happened many times in history with the CIA and the Mossad is intelligence community of Israel. Well, when is that? Well, let me just name off some names. Haiti, Yugoslavia, British Guyana, Iran, Guatemala, Chile, Congo, Indonesia, Cuba, Vietnam, and Ukraine is close to us as 2014. Now, is this a good thing to do? We're supposed to be the West, the United States of America. Is it a good thing to go incite riots in other nations in order to get what you want? In order to push their government to have a pro-Western democracy? To be more favorable to us, to financially benefit, and to benefit in times of war, in the case against China? Is this something we should be doing? Is it okay to do a little bit of dirty work in order to achieve the overall good, which would be the United States of America defeating communist China? You should ask yourself that question. Is this what we should be doing as Americans, and should we be supporting this? And why are they not talking about it? Why? These are the questions I ask all the time. These are the questions that I like to dive into the research on, because I, for one, don't believe it's good to do a little evil to achieve the greater good. I don't believe that. I don't think you have to do that. But that's just my opinion. Apple hosts awe-dropping event today. Apple is holding a highly anticipated product launch event dubbed Awe-Dropping. Starting at 10 a.m. Pacific time, viewers in India can watch at 10:30 p.m. The event is expected to reveal new devices that generated significant excitement amongst tech fans. Seems that I was reading a little bit on Apple stock and kind of how the stock drops even during new phone releases, but they seem to rise when they have, kind of big advancements in the technology and awe-dropping things like this. So maybe that has pushed them. Their stock hasn't been doing too well. So maybe that's kind of pushed them to kind of going this direction. Apple's another company, most of us that have their iPhone, right? Social media controls us, and the way we get to social media is through the iPhone. And so it's interesting to me that right now, the iPhone and social media is dictating a lot of our politics and a lot of the way that the CIA controls not just Americans, but everywhere around the world. And everywhere they have their tentacles, if you become unwesternized or you become not so happy with democracy, all of a sudden riots, outrage. Whereas you can be pro-Western and no riots, outrage. There can be rampant corruption, like in the case of America right now, or like in the case of almost every Western democracy today that's ran by the West. There's rampant corruption. People are dying. Abortion rates. Gen Z, a quarter of it's missing, and yet no riots. But yet you got in Nepal's case, got a kid that posts, he's wealthy. His parents are the leaders of the country and he's wealthy. And you've got, a few other things that are going on that are corruption. And all of a sudden there's rampant riots and they're ready to die on the stake in order to free the country of Nepal from the grips of China. And you look it up, does CIA have any involvement? No, they don't. I mean, who believes that now? Do you really believe that? You think that the CIA has no involvement in Nepal right now? Do you think that? No, they do. But yet, you're not going to say anything about it. And you probably think that it's good. It's a good thing. It's a good thing that the CIA is in Nepal right now and doing all this. 19 people died. It's a good thing. They were bad. Corruption's bad. We need freedom because Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, that's freedom. We know the CIA funded them through NQTEL. We know that. But we know that they censor Americans today, right now. We know it. But it's still good and it's still freer than the alternatives, than what Russia and China and all these other people provide. And hosting these riots and people dying and uprisings and regime change, a lot of death and war, but it's for a greater good, which is the domination of American power. Morals? We want to win. We want to make money. We're super preoccupied with morals when it comes to letting in other people come into our nation seeking asylum, or even people that are seeking a better, freer life from India to come here and have high-paying jobs that takes high-paying jobs from Americans that are here already. We love morality when it comes to that. But when it comes to foreign nations and riots and war, our morality goes out the window because we want to win. And morality is being weaponized. That is the real case here. Morality is being weaponized. Race is being weaponized. Against who? Against you. And our politicians will continue to lie. They'll continue to subvert us. No one's going to pay attention. We'll go deeper and deeper into this. And now let's talk a little bit about why this is going on. First and foremost, it's for profit, right? They're bringing in all these Indians to profit. They don't want their company's stock or anything like that to go down. They want our economy to be booming, and there's a shortage. The American people are not going to college at the same rate as what they hoped, and so they're bringing in all these new people to further the incline of our economy and of stocks of major companies around the West. But why? Just to benefit financially? Well, no, there's another reason. You see, there's World War III is brewing, and we see that in the case of Ukraine and Russia, and we see that in the case of now Nepal and India and China. Just so happens that it's in between, it's on the border of these two countries, Russia and China, the West's made. So why are we flooding our entire country with Indians? Could it be that maybe the West has decided that if World War III is inevitably going to break out, then maybe we should flood our country with immigrants from India and the Arab countries in order to maybe pin them on our side of this major war that will occur. So when we do go to war with China, India will be fighting on our side against China. The Arabs in Europe will be able to enlist and fight on our side against Russia. Could that be something that the West is doing? It makes sense to me. Is this a conspiracy? Well, how would you prove that it's not a conspiracy? There's not going to be any official documentation saying that this is the reason that they're doing these things. It would cause outrage. And so what do? They do it all behind closed doors. They mask their real intentions with morality, saying that, well, we have shortages of doctors and people in tech, and we've got to fill those shortages. There are people that need medical care that are in America. And Americans, we're not producing the amount of children that are needed. We're not doing that. And so the politicians and the leaders, we have to solve that problem. And instead of helping you build your family or promote mothers to have more children, instead of doing that, we're going to instead invade our own nation. And then on top of that, we're going to laugh at you when you suggest we're doing it. We're going to call you a loser and how stupid you are to think that race is even a factor in anything when it comes to societal identity at all. And America is just a piece of paper and a set of rules that you must follow. It's not about a group of people. It's not about a religion. And that is actually the most important thing that we hold dear to our heart, is that America is gutless and rootless and bound to nothing but an idea alone. And to me, that's saddening. It's saddening to see the brain rot within the older community and some of the younger community that has bought into this. And now, when you go to talk about these factors of America and how we are a group of people, well, you're stupid and you're a conspiratorial nut. And our country is going to be invaded. And the white race within America is going to go extinct. But That's okay, and it's actually good because Apple stock is higher than ever, and America continued on. And yeah, say 50 years from now, we're all Muslims, but that's okay. We're all a bunch of minorities of different groups and don't represent our founding fathers at all, but that's okay because we're the smartest. We're so smart that we orchestrated our own extinction. How intelligent is that, right? And it's happening. World War III is happening. Do you think Gen Z, do you think the younger people, the ones who are actually going to go after to war, a lot of the ones that are saying this, that who cares about race, man, you're a loser. None of them are going to war. They're too old. They're not going to war. Whereas the people that are going to war are not going to want to go. They're not going to want to fight for Israel, okay? They're not going to want to do it. So you've screwed the pooch, to say, because we have no identity, and you made a miscalculation with your geniusness. You made a miscalculation, and you suggested that identity actually doesn't matter, and that instead we are about freedom and anyone can become American. And now we are fractured, maybe beyond return. And now when World War III comes around, you better immigrate a lot more Indians, because Gen Z and the people that I know that are my age that are actually going to be the ones that go and fight the war, we don't want to fight. We're not going to want to fight for that. We're not going to want to fight in the way that we're fighting. We don't want to fight through censorship and control through Mark Zuckerberg, okay? We're not going to fight for a pure Jewish state of Israel, but not a pure state of America. We're not going to fight for our stocks and our Walsh and Vanguard and BlackRock and State Street stock to go higher so that way we can be controlled more. We're not going to fight for that. That's not who America is. That's not us. But they're going to try and continue to convince you that that is who we are. And J.D. Vance, the fact that he's fat and has an Indian wife, who cares about that? Who cares that his wife sits in church and takes care of the kids and doesn't listen to the pastor, and J.D. Vance is just going for his own benefit and can't even convince his own family to be Christian? Who cares about that? Look how open we are to all the new people of the world. We're an international group of globalists that all we care about is our stock. We have no identity. Our identity is nothing. We're a rootless, gutless society. And now we want you to strap on a AR-15 and go die in the fields for those companies, for our own control, and for our stock to go up. And guess what? We're not going to do it. A lot of us are not going to do it. I predict that before World War III happens, there will be maybe a civil war within America, or maybe a rampant different direction in politics that we go in, something of that manner before World War III happens, because there is a lot of people who are just not jiving. We're talking about corruption within Nepal. What about the corruption within America? What about Jeffrey's Epstein client list? What about their connections to Israel? And why is nobody saying their connections to Israel? Why? They're saying he was a women abuser, and this is about men versus women. It's not about a foreign nation controlling our own nation. It's not about that. I think it is. And I think a lot of people are waking up to it. And I think making deals with Satan to do what you argue as the greater good isn't working anymore. It's not working with the American people, especially the younger generation. We can't afford a home. We can't afford a home. You're selling us out. You go to the beach and it's just Indians everywhere. This is not even our nation anymore. And you want us to continue voting for you? I don't think so. I don't think we're going to do it. Matter of fact, I know we're not going to do it. Look at the polling numbers between people my age, Generation Z, for Trump. It's not good. So if you're a Republican out there and you're going, Trump, 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 you should really think about the future and the next term election with J.D. Vance versus Gavin Newsom. You should start thinking about that, because the direction that we've gone in now, it's not working. We're not buying it. Anyway, that is all for today. This is the Paint the Town Red podcast. We hope you guys have a wonderful week. Goodbye.